Hello and welcome back to a cold and frosty February morning in the workshop. We are back on the 240Z project. This week, or rather this episode, what I'm going to be doing is a fuel cell, or rather building a fuel cell. I have sold the original 1972 fuel tank, which was in good condition, to a gentleman who is restoring his 240Z to factory specifications. I'm not doing that, obviously. If you've watched any of the other videos, you know that. So I want to build a fuel cell, and the shape of a 240Z tank and the boot floor does not lend itself very nicely to doing so. Basically, the floor is has a big divot in it where the spare wheel well sits. So we're going to get rid of that, and we're going to make a flat floor with some chassis leg reinforcements, access panel to access the fuel pumps in the top of the tank, so that in order to get to the pumps, which are going to be in tank, because that's the way I like to do things, you don't have to take the tank out the bottom of the car to get to it. So stage one, get to it. Let's remove the factory wheel well carefully, because I quite like to sell it because they're about £700 to buy a replacement one here in the UK. So if I pick it out carefully, I should be able to sell it on. So let's get to that. Ta-da! So the fuel tank plate, or maybe the surge tank, not too sure yet, but what I'm going to buy is the flange at least is 6 by 10 inches of 24 bolt holes. It's a pretty standard kind of fuel cell size. So I just made sure this is 11 inches by 7 inches, so I'll definitely be able to get access through the boot to the top of the fuel tank. So after a little bit of straightening out, that is the new boot floor effectively, and this will be the access panel that will probably bolt down with some little M4 bolts all the way around underneath this flange. Plug weld this into the boot, and then that is your new boot floor. And we put some bead rollings just to give the panel a bit of strength, basically, because a flat panel is not as strong as a panel with some detailing on it. I fitted the central plate and tightened it up because it was starting to warp a little bit, and this will help it stay flat. If you've never seen these before, these are called Clecos. Right. And how they work is you drill a small hole, you poke this through, and then as you release it, it expands, and the spring loadedness of it, if you've got a good panel fit, pulls the two pieces of metal together like so. It enables you to pre-fit stuff using a very small hole. You can use screws as well, but these are just much faster and more convenient. So we've got our access plate there with a load of hank nuts welded in, small M4 bolts, 20 of them, probably a bit overkill, but I didn't want it rattling. Holding that in. So I've got my rails for the floor pretty much drawn out here. I've actually already made a couple, but the problem with these is that they're too shallow. What I realised was that I wouldn't have room under the boot floor, because they sit like this, to actually get all of the like the fittings on the top of the fuel cell and the lines out. So what I decided to do, obviously, is manufacture some deeper ones. So this is 20 mil, and this is going to have double. This is going to be 40 mil deep, 40 mil that direction, which is from there to there. It should give me plenty of room on top of the fuel hanger to get the lines and pump and everything in there. So under here, we have two new chassis rails, and these have a dual purpose. Number one, they're going to strengthen this floor and stop it from wibbling around. I mean, the bead rolling that I've put in should help with that a bit. But once these are fully welded in, they should make the floor rock solid. And two, they give me something to actually bolt the fuel cell up against. See what I mean? So the fuel cell will sit against these two rails, and they provide a nice flat level surface for me to secure everything to. I'm going to try and use the original tank strapping mounts. I mean, one's there and one's there, so that should be good to make a new strap to go around this side of the fuel tank. And on this side, I'm going to move this bracket up to about here, so I can do the same thing on this side. Two straps would be sufficient. The original forward mounting hole for the tank strap on this side is not here anymore, because it was on the spare wheel carrier. So I'm going to have to make one to sit down here. I might put something in the side of one of these. Right, so next thing I have to do, it is time to weld in this. So first thing, take this off, clean up underneath. I've already punched all the holes, and then weld the main boot floor in. We're ready to go. Everything's been cleaned back to bare metal, and the underside of the new boot floor and the old boot floor had been primed up with epoxy-based weld-through primer. So let's go. Bong. Where it's going to go. So in a nutshell, what I'm doing here is, this is the tank mounting hook, and there's a little notch that looks exactly like this. It sits on the original chassis leg, and the one that I'm replicating here would have originally been on the spare wheel well. So we pop that in there like that, the tank strap will pull down on that and hold the tank in place. But this in itself is not strong enough, so I'm going to put another piece of 2mm plate inside here, weld it to this, and then cut exactly the same hole that's thicker. All I've done is weld an extra bit of plate in there for some reinforcement, and then this should be super strong. It's going to be stitched in loads of places, a plug weld in loads of places to the floor, so that should be spot on. So let's get these chassis legs welded into the floor, and then that is the floor complete, ready to build the fuel cell. So this is a rail that I made before I made the current two that I'm just fitting to the car at the moment. And the reason I had to remake them was because this one wasn't deep enough. But this should do the job nicely of making the boot super solid, where it's currently bonging around a bit in the centre. Bong. I had to modify it slightly at one end. I had to extend it because the back of the Datsun is actually curved, and therefore the rail wasn't quite long enough to go in the middle of the boot floor, whereas it is long enough to go at the sides. I've also dropped it slightly to profile to the boot floor because it's a little bit more of a complicated shape in the centre. Please don't fall on my head. Please don't fall on my head. I didn't pre-stretch my beads. Paying the price now. So sort out the weakness in the boot floor. Pull everything really tight. My Clico has a spring in it. It does a good job. This will pull it even harder. Go on, Ben, do a joke about pulling it harder. I know you want to. On this piece here, where the flange ends there, what we're going to do is just do a couple of little stitch welds along here to make sure that's nice and strong. That's pretty much, apart from a little bit of tidying up, etc., the boot floor done. We've got a lovely flat boot floor, which will be easy to trim. We've got our access panel for getting to the top of the fuel pump, the fuel tank with the fuel pumps, etc. And we've got a rock solid boot floor with hangers, and we've got somewhere to strap our tank from. I need to sand down all these welds, but you don't want to see me do that on video because that's very boring. So yes, anyway, I am really pleased with how this has come out. I didn't really make a plan, I just sort of made it, and thankfully it's come out really nicely. So join me next time on this car when I will probably be making the fuel cell, and that will be a pretty cool thing to make. So if you enjoyed this video, please consider liking and subscribing to the channel. We've got loads more cool to show you. We've got to finish the Jensen, we've got to build this car, we've got the K20 Mark II Golf project as well that's now in full swing. So lots of interesting stuff coming. We'll do a video on that soon because that's cool as f. That's Gordon's car. Anyway, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you next time.